Hi, this is Dr. Joannides, Chief Medical Director at Optimum Re, and this is the Optimum Academy Oncology 101 video number 1, Understanding Ratings. So this is a chart from the CDC showing the 10 leading causes of death by age group in the United States for 2018, and the numbers are still similar now, so we'll just use this chart. But you can see in the younger age groups, the leading cause of death, they're ranked 1 through 10. On the left, leading cause of death for the ages 0 or less than 1, 1 to 4, 5 to 9, 10 to 14, etc., up to 35 to 44. It's from age 1 to 44, it's unintentional injury, so due to accidents. In the first year, 0 to 1, it's due to congenital anomalies. So it's kind of like a takeoff of an airplane. The first year, you got to take off and get going. And then in ages 45 to basically 64, it's malignant neoplasm, so the leading cause of death. And at ages 65 plus, it's heart disease. But you can see for the younger ages, accidents, suicides, homicides, so things that are non-medical are the larger causes of death for the younger age groups. But cardiac disease, over 65, and then malignant neoplasms in the 45 to 64-year-old group. So I just want to show you what this life table for the total population in the U.S. 2017 looks like. It shows for each year of life, so like the first year listed at the very top is age 0 to 1, so that first year. And then it tells you the probability of dying in the first year. And I've highlighted in red, what I'm kind of zeroing in on is I want to get to the age group of approximately 30. So I'm gonna highlight that in the next coming slides, okay? So we want to get to the year of life from when someone turns 30 until they turn 31. So that 1 year group, I want to use that as kind of a basic standard point to refer to. And if we kind of magnify it, it's still kind of blurry, but basically what it tells us is that in that year of living from 30 to 31, your risk of dying in that year is approximately 1 in 1,000. So risk of dying is approximately 1 in 1,000. So in life insurance, what else do we talk about as number per thousand? So flat extra premiums are number per thousand, right? So everybody's heard of applying a flat extra premium in certain cancers or maybe some other diseases. So flat extra premium for medical causes are usually for a limited period of time to cover additional mortality risk. And some companies don't share that extra premium, that flat extra premium with the agent, but it goes directly to the company because you're protecting for a limited number of years for that extra risk. So flat extra premiums would be significantly more costly at age 30 than a table rating would be. And I'll show you why that is the case. And then flat extra premiums are less costly at age 80 than a table rating. And I'll show you why that is the case. So what does underwriting normally do? It eliminates or rates the high mortality risks and creates a select group with a mortality risk that is better than the general Social Security population mortality, in quotes. So when we underwrite, we're trying to select better risks that we can insure and apply ratings where indicated in those risks up to a certain point at which we decline the case, right? And the mortality risk is too high. So we do a pretty darn good job of predicting cardiovascular disease risk because we have all these factors that we look at like blood pressure, cholesterol, EKGs, A1Cs, you know the list, calcium scores, echoes, perfusion scans, and caths. So we have a pretty good idea of what somebody's cardiovascular risk might be to create our select group. But we're not so great at predicting cancer. PSAs are not often utilized when they could be. Uh, Mammograms are helpful. Smoking history can be useful. If somebody has hepatitis B or C that's active, that can be a predictor for liver cancer, etc. Family history of liver cancer, but we don't have as many tools to predict cancer as we do to predict cardiovascular risk, right? So let's talk about standard mortality. So standard mortality is equal to 100%. So when we talk about a standard non-smoker risk, I think we can all agree that that means 100% in a select life insurance population. Risks that are better than standard would have a less than 100% mortality, and risks that are worse than standard would be rated with debits like plus 50 or plus 100. So one debit equals 1% extra or increase in mortality risk. What's preferred mortality risk? So whatever terminology the company uses, whether it's preferred elite or select preferred or some other euphemistic term to designate the best risks, let's say it could be approximately 40% of standard mortality. And most companies use what we call knockout criteria. So everyone starts at preferred elite or whatever, the best possible risk class. And then we knock them out of that with anything that we note in the attending physician statement or in the requirements that are obtained when underwriting the case. So people are preferred elite until they're knocked out of it. Now, if you think about it, maybe in senior citizens that apply for life insurance, we should maybe think about starting them off at standard, and then if they're better than standard, we give them a preferred rating, rather than allowing everyone to start at preferred elite and then getting knocked out. But anyway, what's preferred considered? And some companies say it's approximately 60% of standard. There might be some groups, I put an abbreviation SSL here, so there may be some groups that have a designation between preferred and standard, which may be in like the 80 to 90% of standard mortality, whatever that euphemistic term they might use to describe that group. And then standard mortality, the basis is at 100% mortality. And then table ratings would add debits to get to, plus 50 is 150% of standard mortality, or plus 100 is 200% or twice standard mortality risk. So now you get an idea of, these are just approximate, depending on what the company is, of what the risk is for these terms that are used. So we said a table for mortality risk is plus 100 or twice the standard mortality. So if we expect one 30-year-old to die per 1,000 in the year 30 to 31 as standard, then table 4 means we expect two 30-year-olds per 1,000 to die in the table 4 bucket. So all those people that are in that bucket, we would expect twice the mortality in that 30 to 31-year-old group. But at age 85, it's not just one extra death per 1,000, but it's 139 extra deaths per 1,000 per year. So between the ages of 85 and 86, 139 people might die. So a table 4 rating would be huge. That would be 278 deaths per 1,000 per year. That's a lot. So you can see how table ratings are quite different at different ages, right? Not much extra deaths at 30, but certainly a lot at age 85. So this kind of just shows you on a graph, if you look at the turquoise dots, starting at the bottom are the ages, and you can see for that age of 0 to 1, there's over 6 deaths per 1,000 because that first year has all those congenital anomalies and other problems, and then it drops precipitously, and then the lowest, or the nadir, is at age 10. And then it gradually starts creeping up, and then as you get into your late 50s and 60s, it starts going up exponentially. So the number of deaths per 1,000 is significantly affected by what the age of the person is. So let's look at ratings at age 30 versus age 85. So a table 4 at age 30 accounts for 1 extra death per 1,000. A table 4 at age 85 accounts for 139 extra deaths per 1,000. So a table 4 increase is much, much more premium in an 85-year-old and it's kind of small at age 30. And you can well imagine that in a juvenile, a table 4 rating is peanuts, because we don't really charge much extra for a rating of a table 4 in a juvenile. So let's talk about what is a flat extra premium, which I abbreviate FEP. So let's say we have a cancer and we want to add a flat extra premium of $5 or $10 per 1,000 of face amount. So where did this flat extra premium idea come from? So where did 10 per 1,000 come from? And I'll give you a hint. We were talking in standard mortality for like 30-year-olds of 1 death per 1,000. So, we were talking per 1,000, right, to die each year. So let's continue that thought. So with a flat extra premium of $10 per year for 5 years equates to an extra 10 deaths per 1,000 for the next 5 years. So that flat extra premium is a significant additional charge for a young person. So at age 30, that's 10 times the standard death rate per year, which is a huge extra premium, because we said at age 30 only 1 death per 1,000 was standard. We're charging $10 per year per 1,000. So we're charging a huge extra premium at age 30. But at age 85, we're not expecting just 1 death per 1,000 per year. We're expecting 139 deaths per 1,000 per year. So adding $10 per year for the flat extra premium per 1,000 of face is really peanuts at that age. So you can see that at younger ages, table ratings are lower cost to the applicant, whereas a flat extra premium is huge. At older ages, like 85, flat extra premiums are peanuts and table ratings are huge. So that's the difference when you look at a case. You got to think of, okay, what is the population that I'm trying to rate here? And how is this flat extra premium or table rating going to affect the premium at that particular age? So I hope that's clear and helpful. But we'll go on with flat extra premiums are much more expensive at younger ages. Table ratings are much more expensive at older ages. And flat extra premiums, as I'm using the term, are peanuts at older ages. So this just reiterates on the life table that in the first year of life, in the first red box at the top, so that year of life from 0 to 1, we start with 100,000 lives, and in the first year, 659 deaths are expected. For years 10 to 11, we have still 99,000 plus survivors, and we only expect 8 deaths per 100,000. So that's a very low number of deaths per 1,000. So that's the nadir. That's as low as it goes. So the year 10 is a good year. And then it goes back up above 600 when you get to ages 57 to 58. So it takes that long to get to the number of deaths that we noted in years 0 to 1. So the reason I bring this up about talking about 10-year-olds is consider juvenile cancer. So at age 10, we expect 8 deaths per 100,000 per year. So it's best to be a 10-year-old. So that would equate to 0.8 deaths per 10,000, or 0.08 deaths per 1,000, or 0.008 deaths per 100. Okay? Very low death rate. So the survival would be 99.992 for a standard population. So if you took 100,000 or whatever number of 10-year-olds, you'd expect their survival to be 99.992%. So sometimes we read an article about a child who's had cancer. We look up the cancer and they say, oh, it's a great survival rate. Survival rate is 95%, which means that's 5 deaths per 100, or 5,000 deaths per 100,000 for survivors of that cancer, for whatever time period they stipulate, right? But wait a minute, we said that there was only going to be 8 deaths per 100,000 in a normal standard population for 10-year-olds. Here we're saying there's 5,000 deaths per 100,000 for these survivors of this type of cancer. So that's way above what we would expect in a standard population. So that's why even with what seemingly looks like a good survival rate in juvenile cancer, it's unlikely that a life company would accept that juvenile. So our graph again showing how the deaths per 1,000 stack out. I just wanted to mention as a final slide in this first video how tobacco use adversely affects mortality risk. So positive cotinine, or a history of tobacco use, is definitely a negative. Most companies rate like 2 to 2.5 times the standard mortality, so 4+ tables due to the smoking because it has such adverse effects. And the long-term smoking is high risk and remains so for 15 to 20 years after smoking cessation. So if you think about it, even if you quit today, you still have risk 15 years from now. So it has a long tail of risk. And now it's recommended that people that have stopped smoking get an annual low-dose CT scan of their lungs, because the risk remains so high for a decade and a half after cessation. And the people that remain smokers, after all the negative publicity about the hazards of smoking, are really recalcitrant smokers. So they're probably an even higher risk group than 2 to 2.5 tables, maybe closer to 3 times the risk, and they're at risk for lung cancer and all kinds of other oral and GI cancers. They're at risk for CAD and vascular disease, not to mention COPD. So that completes our first video in the oncology video series in the Optimum Academy. Stay tuned for our second video.